You. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of General Geekery. With me, as always, is JD.
Hello.
JD just came, well, sort of came for a visit. He didn't come to visit me, but he came for a visit in Colorado. So I got to see him again recently. I think that's the most I've seen you in person in the shortest amount of time ever.
I'll say, dude, that's twice in the span of a year.
Yeah.
And um, well, initially, because my girlfriend and she's from Colorado, and she wanted to take a trip up there so I could meet some of her family. And initially, Brian wasn't in the plans because he was supposed to be deployed to uh, wherever it was south of the equator that he was. And then that changed. So he was able to be there. So that's excellent because I hated the idea of going to Colorado and not being able to get together with him. But I mean, it was a quick trip. We were there for all of 3 days and we had a lot of visiting stuff in there, but it's but it's nice because I've met a bunch of her family now, and I feel like part of the tribe. So
They accepted you as one of their own.
uh, it sure seems that way. Now,
Good deal.
who knows? Behind closed doors, there could be naysaying. I don't know, but
I
um,
that.
but uh, it seems we're off to a good start because her brother's getting married in a couple months, and that seemed like a really just bad idea to try to meet the family then. So we figured we'd do this, meet some of the other people that she's known for years, and Brian and Emily came out, and we got to go to the world famous Mile High Comics.
Yes.
Honestly, in my
Just
lifetime,
a little backstory on JD's girlfriend. JD's girlfriend is one of my best friends. I've known her for like 20 years. She used to babysit my puppy when, like
she's
Angie, my like firstborn, when I first got her.
yes, Tanya has known Brian for
Dispatcher.
longer than I've known Brian.
Yeah. His girlfriend was a dispatcher at the ambulance company that I worked for, and I would take my dog to work with me. And anytime we went out on a call, I had to put her in a crate. So the dispatchers would go and get her out of our quarters and keep her in with dispatch in the dispatchers. And Tanya was one of the ones that dispatched, so she would babysit my puppy, and I'd be on scene, and my pager would go off. And my partner would whisper in my ear, "Angie's in dispatch when we get back." Like, okay.
um, so yes, my girlfriend, I only know her through Brian, my best friend, and she's known him for longer than I have. But for a while, he was after we got together, after we started dating, he was a little weirded out because, like he said, two people from two very different parts of his life
Yeah.
got together, and it was strange at first.
Oh
But
yeah, it was really weird, man. It's like being in some sort of like reality TV show where the writers are like, I don't know what we're gonna do. We're in season 7 and we're running out of plots. You know what? Let's make the two main characters fall in love with each other.
um, yeah, curveball. So because well, frequent viewers of this show or previous listeners or all three of you probably will remember that almost 4 years ago, Tanya was on our show on the audio version.
Yeah.
And then last year, she was on the show for the first time once we started doing video while I was visiting Brian in Colorado during Joe Fest when we decided, no, we're not going to a convention during COVID.
Right.
And Tanya and I started talking when I arranged that, and we've been talking ever since. And we've been together for almost 9 months now. She's met my family. Now I've met a bunch of her family. And I have no doubts that she's my soulmate. She's the one I've been looking for. And it's all thanks to my co-host, Brian. Thanks, dude.
Welcome.
I am not entirely convinced still that he is not a member of the Q Continuum and that he made this happen, but I am happy about it because last year, when I first got out there, I was a shell of a person. And
yes, you were.
Yes.
Don't worry,
so,
I'll be back in a couple thousand years or a couple hundred years to put humanity on trial for their crimes against their
good, because humanity has a lot to answer for.
Yeah. I'll make sure they answer for that.
So yes, we got to take a short visit out to Colorado, but we will be back in October for the wedding, and then we're gonna get to see Brian some more. And because last year when I was there, I went with him when we shot some pictures out at some of the sites out there, and he said, and I was marveling at the scenery because Colorado was full of good scenery.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he said the next time you come out, it should be during the fall so you can see all the autumnal colors because fall is my favorite season. And well, coincidentally, it just worked out that way. Their brother's getting married in October, so it'll be the perfect time of the year to do exactly that.
Yep. So we'll do some. We did a live podcast while we were customizing while he was here, and it turned out that it was pretty popular. So we might have to do that again.
I believe we will.
We should. Ooh, you know what? We should do another challenge to reveal in October.
Oh boy.
Oh, I pick characters. You pick characters. Ooh.
Well, we'll have to talk about that. Yes, we shall discuss that.
Oh no, I won't let that one die. I am all over that.
No, I mean the details of it. Yeah,
because those were two of my favorite customs that I've done so far, especially that Night Creeper, that version 2 Night Creeper, because those were not easy colors to paint.
No, but in minute you enjoyed painting bright pink. You enjoyed painting bright pink so much that you did a Mega Viper after that.
I did. Because that Night Creeper turned out so awesome. Like, oh, dude, yeah, totally gonna do a female Mega Viper.
Yes, and of course, because was it Mega Viper and something else? I said, oh, pick one of those, do that. So you picked the Mega Viper. I'm like, wow, holy shit. So
yeah,
for anybody who isn't familiar with the Mega Viper, 1993, there was a Cobra Trooper.
I've actually got the
Marines
figure
line
here.
That was neon yellow and neon orange, and he's a little bit like a Lemonade Viper. You got both the pink lemonade and the yellow lemonade variety. And he made a custom of a modern version. Yeah. And that is completely badass.
Here she is. So I did the yellow and I used a Tron helmet.
He very necessarily toned down the colors a bit because, man, that shit was loud.
And then it has
he used the same colors, but yes, he made them less garish, which was necessary, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because even the G.I. Joe Collectors Club, when they were updating stuff from the 90s that used to be neon, even they toned down some of the garish colors. So this fits right alongside that.
There you go. So that's...
Yep, it's gorgeous. I love that figure. I
happy.
Love that custom. I love the results of it.
Bitch of a color to paint.
Yeah. And the customs that he made last year for me for the challenge, Cadet Deming and Night Creeper, the Ninja Force Night Creeper, they're hanging up on the wall in my bedroom. So, nice. Yeah, we shall talk about details.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm totally on board. You just gotta give me enough lead time so I can pick parts.
Yes.
So
But
what do you think? You pick 5 characters, I pick 5 characters, and we go from there. I think that's how we did it last time.
it is how we did it last time. Hang on, I gotta turn this light on.
So yeah,
okay, it didn't help much. The light still sucks, but so I'm up for it. I just don't know which format I'm going to use at this point because at the time that we did that last year, I was all in on the Real American Hero style. I'd gone back to it a couple years before that. And then while I was out there, I put together some modern figures so I can make my Eco Warriors. And then for a little while, I did a couple of those. And right now, I'm experimenting with the 6-inch classified style stuff.
yeah, but there's not enough six. To me, there's
plenty.
Okay, I was gonna say I didn't think there'd be enough to do customs with.
There's plenty. You just sometimes have to go outside you definitely have to go outside the classified line.
Yeah,
because you're right.
That is like
when it comes to the classified parts,
yeah,
no, the selection isn't nearly wide enough. Because if you look at most of the classified figures, there's a lot of parts reuse, which there needs to be. Because the fact is, it's a more expensive line to do, but it's a more expensive. But it's successful. But they don't have a super wide range of tooling yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm working on a couple. I'm experimenting with it, so we'll see what happens with that. We'll see how they turn out. Right now, I'm working on the trio of Sergeant Slaughter's Renegades.
Ooh.
I have always been a fan of those characters. There's very little chance Hasbro's ever going to do them again. And all the follow-up versions of them as a trio were done as exclusives. And there's definitely never a chance they're going to show up in the classified line.
No, I don't think so either.
So Red Dog, Taurus, and Mercer, I'm kind of working on my own custom versions. And it's because of them that I am aware there is plenty in the 6-inch scale to use as custom fodder.
Yeah.
But it's also how I know you have to go outside the G.I. Joe line, sometimes way outside the G.I. Joe line.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you've got all of the Marvel figures are in, Marvel Legends are in 6-inch. You got all the Star Wars Black stuff.
Let's see.
There's a ton of DC has a 6-inch line.
You can and there's numerous other lines that like Mattel's WWE Elite line.
Yes.
Is extensive for parts and facial likeness. If you want a variety of facial expressions on your figures, the WWE line is a good way to go.
I didn't think of that.
And Jakks Pacific, which used to hold the license for WWE, they don't anymore. But what they do have is the UFC line, the Ultimate Fighting Championship line. And their figures are done with the same attention to detail that their wrestling figures were.
Yeah.
Which means likenesses based on real people, and they're good likenesses, and there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of parts that you can pick. So if I was to go in that direction, and I'm not saying I will, because it's entirely possible that by the time I finish these Renegades, I might be like, okay, too much. Or I might not. I don't know. We're going to see. But that's what I've been messing around with. Because I really like the classified line. Yes, it's a nightmare to try to get a hold of, but I just got Flint. Lady J is due this week. It's weird because I ordered Flint and Lady J at the same time last November. So and they were both originally due like for months. The due date, the delivery date was the same, And then while I was in Colorado over the weekend, Flint arrived. So now I'm just waiting on Lady J.
Yeah, see, I'm not a huge 6-inch fan just because 1/18 scales, like, I've been playing with 1/18 scale figures since the original Star Wars line came out in 1978. So, I mean, it's for me, it's hard to switch over. That being said, I do have a very extensive 6-inch Iron Man collection. So it's not unknown to me, and I have, when JD was here last, we both found the Baroness, so I had to pick that up because I thought it was a cool figure, and I really liked the Red Ninja, so I picked that one up. And when the figures came out, I bought Scarlet just to see what all the hype was. And if I came across a Firefly, I would pick one up. And Major Blood is one of my favorite characters in the GI Joe verse anyway. So I'm trying to get one right now, doing a trade, but waiting to see if the guy's gonna. He wants another figure first, but he's waiting to see if that guy's gonna trade him for that figure, and if he doesn't, then I get a crack at it with the figure I'm going to trade for him.
Well, when it comes to the Firefly figure that Hasbro made, I'm not even annoyed it's an exclusive because that just comes with the territory nowadays. But I actually really just strongly dislike the design that they went with for Firefly.
And you're not the first person that I've heard say that.
I mean, they stuck with the familiar urban camo that's trademarked for Firefly, but I don't like the detailing. And the fact is, the base figure is a repaint of, I mean, with a few retoolings and different accessories, the base figure is a repaint of Beachhead, which is a familiar echo of the 25th anniversary Joe line, where at some point, despite in the original line, Beachhead and Firefly always being very distinctive sculpts, and obviously characters that had almost nothing in common unless you count wearing a ski mask. But when the 25th line came out, all of a sudden there were a bunch of shared parts between them, and then they went and they did that for the classified line, and which is fine, except that just like in the 25th line, Beachhead, hang on, let's see, in the 25th line, and then again in this line, Beachhead has the sweater sculpt with the lines for the knit, and for the classified Firefly, they just slap the camo over it. So you've got the upper half and the lower half. They're supposed to look like a unified uniform, and they don't. But instead, in the Fortnite game, there's a character in a mask with gray urban camouflage, and a lot of people have called it a ripoff, but it's not a ripoff. It's a tribute.
Yeah, it's an homage.
Yes, and it was a deliberate homage because whoever created Havoc for Fortnite was a Firefly fan when he was a kid. So, and because I really, never mind the availability of the classified Firefly, honestly, I just dislike it altogether. Because honestly, if I liked it, even if I had to pay more, I would have tracked it down. But yeah, I happen to dislike it. But I like the Fortnite version. So I've got him instead. That's Havoc. But in order to unify it with the original, I went to Etsy and got a 3D printed version of Firefly's original backpack.
Nice.
So somebody was 3D printing a lot of a lot of accessories from the vintage line scaled up for these, and I just painted all the details inside.
That's pretty cool.
So Havoc is Firefly now.
Nice.
And then the submachine gun came with another figure from the Fortnite line. I honestly don't know who, but it doesn't have the stock, but I feel like it was close enough to the vintage Firefly
Just needs to be
rifle that I could replicate. And then, honestly, in the 6-inch line, I really like that I can have some of the Marvel stuff coexist, because the Marvel universe, to a point, some of it does have a presence in my shared universe. It's kind of on the ancillary, but some of the characters can fit. And I got this guy the other day. So I have a Nick Fury and a Captain America, and I've got a Hulk. We've got a Hulk.
I did a modern military Captain America custom based on some artwork I saw. I don't know where he is. He's on the wall somewhere.
Yeah, I might at some point make maybe a little bit more of a G.I. Joe version, but for now it'll fit. I need a Falcon figure to go with him.
I did a Falcon custom a number of years ago.
Yeah, I need Falcon. Let's see, I have War Machine, so he can fit with them too. And I almost bought Maverick the other day, and I didn't. I put it down. But if I ever decide to go back and get it, I think he can fit okay. Maybe, possibly. But yeah, I'd really like to get a Wolverine figure to go, but all the Wolverine figures, I looked over them, and honestly, they're cool to have as Wolverine, but I don't think I can make him gel. I don't think I can make him fit with the. I need to find one with a more realistic uniform.
I saw that they posted a reveal today of a Wolverine, Marvel Legends Wolverine without a shirt. I mean, maybe that'll be
that'll be a great that'll make for a great. Well, no, I was going to say that'd make for a great quick kick, except they did that last year with Shang-Chi, and a lot of people used the Marvel Legends Shang-Chi, which was a really well done figure.
Yes.
And they used it for quick kick customs because, well, that really just makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of those. They look really nice. The guys.
Yeah, I mean, really they are good. But yeah, I'm not I may at some point grab a Wolverine, but what I don't want, because I did look at the Marvel Legends versions that they did of the Wolverine from the X-Men, from the Fox X-Men movies, and they are more realistic, but I'm just reminded that those were fine movies, but I really never wanted toys based on them. So, but yeah, while I was in Denver.
Oh yeah.
Ryan and Emily, they came out and they met up with Tanya and I, and we got to go to the world famous Mile High Comics, which, honestly, when I was a little kid reading Marvel comics, I don't think there was such thing as an issue that did not have a print ad for Mile High Comics.
It had a gatefold. Mile High had a gatefold ad in Marvel Comics every
year. Yep. There was, so it was massive, and it would list current comics that Mile High would get, and they had a subscription service set up back then. And so it was kind of one of those things that I'm like, ooh, one of the world's biggest comic book stores. Ooh, that would be really cool to see someday. But
pretty sure it is the world's biggest comic book store.
It might be. Well, after going in there, I would tend to believe it. God damn it. Get out of here. Go downstairs and do that.
He's yelling at time, so you know.
What?
Nothing.
Every time I look at the damn cat, he's licking himself. It's disgusting. Go in the basement and do that. Anyways, I know it's natural, but I don't want to see it. Ugh.
Yeah, I know. But one of my healers would lick her butt all the time. She had a butt licking rug that we put in a back room somewhere, and she'd go sit on that rug. She knew that she had to go sit on the rug if she wanted to lick her butt.
Gross. Yeah. You know, I don't care if the cat does it. Don't do it in front of me. Ew. Go in the other room. gross. But anyways, I it was kind of one of those things that I thought, hey, that'd be really cool to go to someday. But it was one of those thoughts. It was like a flight of fancy. Never thought I'd have an opportunity to go. And then even after I traveled out to Colorado last year, and it was still just the knowledge of Mile High Comics' existence became sort of an abstract idea in my head. It was definitely nothing that was at the front of my thoughts or anything. So I don't think I ever would have given it any thought. And then when Tanya and I were driving to her brother's house Friday, we were on the thruway, or the highway, as some people in the country call it. Apparently, throughways are not a universal idea.
No, I don't know what a throughway is. You said it was on the throughway, and I'm like, where the fuck are you at? We don't have throughways here.
Okay, so highways and throughways, I thought they were the same thing.
I know what in the actual hell you're talking about.
Yeah. Apparently, highways and throughways, not the same thing. They are the same thing, but apparently not the same thing. But anyways, we're driving, and we come around, and I'm watching out the window, and I see a giant sign off the road that says Mile High Comics. I'm like, holy shit. You've got to be kidding me. And Tanya's like, what? What's wrong? I'm like, nothing's wrong. I just saw Mile High Comics off the. I'm like, oh my God. That would be awesome. She's like, okay, well, I don't know what that is, but I'm glad you're happy that you found it. And I'm like, it's just not a place I ever would have thought of I'd actually get to step into. So she said, well, we're going to meet up with Brian. Why don't we go there tomorrow? I'm like, oh, yes.
Good idea.
And that is exactly what we did. My girlfriend is a genius. And that is exactly what we did. Now, we didn't buy anything. No, we just looked, and we spent a good long time looking around.
Yeah, probably a couple hours.
We spent a couple hours in there, and that's a fraction of the time you could spend if you wanted to stop and look at everything.
So to kind of put in context of where we went, so Mile High Comics. Well, first of all, there's a little bit of a backstory that I was explaining to JD. So Mile High Comics, there's a pedigree to this. So back in, I don't remember, maybe the early late 70s, the owner of what would become the owner of Mile High Comic Books came across a comic book collection, I think in this lady's basement or attic here in Denver, and it was several thousand Golden Age books that were in pristine mint condition, because in Colorado we have a relative humidity of like 7 to 11%, which is like dry as dust, and it was kept in a cool and dark environment with the humidity being zero. They were just pristine. So he ended up selling those and getting a like amazing fuck ton of money for them, and started Mile High Comics. Eventually there was like 3 or 4 or even 5, I think at one point in time, 5 stores throughout the Denver metro area, which is like 5 counties put together. So it's actually a really big area. And then they eventually had a superstore up on the north end of town that was just amazing to behold. It was really close to the ambulance company that I worked at for a number of years, so I was in and out of there a bunch of times. And then JD's talking about seeing this thing from the highway. I'm like, how the fuck did you see that from the highway? Because I mean, it's close. That the store I'm thinking of is close to the highway, but you can't see it from the highway because it's about a mile off. I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? So we end up going to had to get directions from Tanya, because I'm like, I don't think we're talking about the same place. And what it is, what they have done is they have bought a warehouse. I mean, a huge warehouse.
This is a massive building.
Probably 100,000 square feet at least.
Yeah. I'd say
Probably
so.
more than that. And it is full of nothing but comic books and t-shirts and toys and the, like statues. And it's just, and like half of it is like roped off because they've got so many. They probably have several thousand long white boxes of comic books that they have not graded to put into on sale yet. I mean, I think they said that they had like 10,000 plus comic books that in just this like one tiny section that hadn't gone into the, hadn't gone up for sale yet. It's just a huge warehouse full of nothing but cool shit.
I would guesstimate that the 10,000 plus comics that are not inventoried, so they're not for sale, that he's talking about, it's probably a lowball number.
Yeah, it was probably just that one row, and then they had 20 rows like that.
Yeah, because there's plenty to look at, and then everywhere you go in the store, you can there's signs that say no customers beyond this point, because once you take a look down there, you realize that is all stuff that is waiting to have a place, either out on the floor there or possibly get moved to one of the other locations. I didn't realize there were multiple locations of Mile High Comics, but there are, I mean, just what we could see, there's cabinets, like glass front sliding door cabinets, full of vintage toys, full of statues upon statues, like busts and entire dioramas and statues that customers, that people have made, that are on display there. There was that 12-foot high Lego style Sentinel.
That was like 20 feet at least. 20-foot Lego Galactus.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane. And I mean, there's so much to look at in this store that if we weren't just going in to look around and hang out, because I was looking around as a curiosity, more because I'm trying to behold that, oh my God, I'm actually in this place, which is not a place I would have ever expected to go. I didn't go in with the intention of buying anything, and there was plenty I could have bought, but well, first of all, I'm not going to travel with it. Yeah. And I'm not going to make Brian mail it to me. And second of all, honestly, when it came to all the books, I could probably get them cheaper on Amazon. Most of the toys are not things that I would really need to buy. And honestly, their prices are not great on their toys.
I hate to say that about Mile High Comics, but yeah.
But
you're paying
most of the toys they have.
We would have gone to the comic book store that I've been going to since I was a kid, which is only a couple blocks away from where Tanya used to live.
I mean, at some point, I would like to go in there. I mean, but for now, honestly, most of the toys are priced at what you'd find on the normal secondary market. If you go on the internet and you search for these things, it's about comparable, minus the shipping, but that you don't have to. And honestly, of the hundreds of long boxes of comics that are there on the floor for you to look at, it's not that I don't want to, but I really just don't have the patience to just thumb through these comics like I used. Because there was a time when I did.
Yeah.
But nowadays it's just kind of like, if there's books that I'm looking for, I'm more tempted to just go look specifically for those things. But like they had like dollar bins and like $2 bins, and these comics $1 each and $2 each, and that's great if you're really just looking out of curiosity. But
so I have a theory about that.
Yeah.
So my theory is that, and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me, and that's quite all right, but my theory is, just based off of my experience, that comic book collecting kind of needs to be your only hobby. because there is just so much involved, so much hunting stuff down, so much digging through crap, so much stuff new stuff that comes out all the time in different conditions, and it's such an extensive hobby that to really, I won't say to enjoy it, but to like get the full experience, it kind of needs to be your only hobby.
I can see where you're coming from on that, because honestly, the amount of aimless thumbing through that you could do just looking for back issues of comics upon comics upon comics, I don't know how you would have time to devote to any other hobby, because comics have been a thing for, well, let's see, comic books as we know them, or the funny books as they used to call them.
The 30s.
Yeah, I was gonna say they predate World War II by a long time.
Yeah, the 30s
I
were
mean,
the early comic books.
I mean, over the years there have been different trends and different subject matters that have been covered, and there's been entire genres of comics that have come and gone because they fall out of popularity or whatever. But
like the romance
comic books
and the westerns and
right. And I mean, during World War II, everything was propaganda for the war.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
That's what comic books were. And then after the war, in the 60s and 70s, horror comics became a big deal.
It's true.
And then later in the 90s,
Innocent that like took all of that away.
Yeah. And then in the 90s, well, anybody listening to this, you probably read comics in the 90s, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the market crashed. The market fell out of the bottom of the market fell out of comic books, and that's why Marvel doesn't have the license to Spider-Man in that. Well, they have the X-Men back, but as of last year or the year before, but Marvel, to keep the lights on, sold all of their movie rights to like Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and the X-Men just to keep the lights on, because nobody was buying comics.
Basically, when Marvel sold the company to Disney, when Disney acquired them, they pulled Marvel's ass out of the fire because they were a sinking ship. But it has taken Disney a long time, or Disney Marvel a long time, to get some of the rights back to some of those characters.
And they still don't have them all back.
No, but yeah, they got, Disney bought Marvel, or Disney bought Fox out last year. So yeah, they got Captain America, or no, excuse me, they already had Captain. They got all the mutants back, and they got the Fantastic Four back. They do not have Namor. And even though Spider-Man is showing up in MCU movies, he's still owned by Sony.
Yep.
Sony basically collects a shitload of money from a metric ass load of money from Marvel to use Peter Parker. But that is also why Sony is making movies about Spider-Man villains that do not include Spider-Man in them, because they basically can't. Although I think that's going to change.
There's a clause in that contract, as I understand it, that Sony has to keep, and that was the same thing with Fox. That's why they kept making Fantastic Four movies that sucked. Whoever owned the license, so Fox and Fantastic Four and Sony and Spider-Man, the thing was they had to keep making movies, or the rights would revert back to Marvel. So that's why you kept seeing all these, like Spider-Man 3 that was shit, and every Fantastic Four movie that was garbage. It's like, okay, this sucks. Why do you keep making them? They have to, or they'll lose the rights. The rights will revert back to Marvel.
And now they have. But well, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, because if I'm not mistaken, this, I think in December, Spider-Man No Way Home is coming out in theaters. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they're going to include some characters from previous Spider-Man movies popping up because
Yes.
this is where Marvel is going. They dropped.
The actor that did that portrayed Dr. Octopus in the second Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie has signed up to portray.
Yeah.
And I saw that they are also. I saw something recently that said after No Way Home comes out, they're going to do a Kraven the Hunter movie, and then after both of those movies come out, then it will be clear where they're going with the franchise. So I am really interested to see what their plans are because it sounds like they have a whole lot of stuff planned.
Yeah. I know Jamie Foxx from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the second Andrew Garfield movie, he played Electro. He's coming back for this one.
No, I didn't see that.
And I read a rumor. Yeah, so Alfred Molina's coming back from Spider-Man 2. Jamie Foxx is coming back from Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I read a rumor that one of the Green Goblins from those movies might be popping up too.
No, I hadn't seen that either.
Whether it's Willem Dafoe or the weird kid that played his son in well, no, I guess Norman Osborn's son, he was in both of those franchises. So I don't know which one, but supposedly some version of the Green Goblin.
I've never watched the two Amazing Spider-Man movies with.
I saw the first one. As much as I liked Andrew Garfield in the part, I just didn't care that much. But by that point, it's like, wow, yeah, we need another version of Spider-Man. That's exactly what we need. Oh wait, no, we don't.
See, that's why they kept doing it. It's like they had to keep making movies or they'd lose the rights back to Marvel. So that's why they kept making movies.
But I think No Way Home is going to change that in a big way if they're bringing back. Well, I'm not really surprised because Spider-Man Far From Home mentioned on screen the multiverse, and that's exactly where they're going with this. That was the first mention of it in the MCU, but No Way Home is going to kick that concept off of bringing.
I don't think so. I think, well, when does Doctor Strange 2 come out?
Not till next year.
Aha. All right.
Spider-Man No Way Home is going to open the multiverse concept up. We're going to see it happen. And then next year's Doctor Strange sequel, In the Multiverse of Madness, is going to break the world open further. So this is going to be real interesting to see what they do here.
What did you think of the preview for Eternals?
Weird and interesting.
All right.
I don't know what the hell an Eternal is. I know there was a concept in the mutant books of the Eternals because Gideon and Cannonball in the X-Force comics were supposed to be Eternals. But I don't know if that's in any way connected to the Eternals at large in the Marvel Universe. And I'm not entirely, now that I think about it, I'm not entirely certain they were Eternals. I know they were supposed to be ageless, but I don't know if they were actually connected to the cosmic Eternals that Marvel had.
I think they were just mutants. I don't think they were.
Because I don't know. All right, quick background. I didn't know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were until Marvel announced that movie would be coming out. I knew who Drax was because he had a toy in the stores at that time, but otherwise, I didn't know who they were.
Yeah, I only knew who they were because the original appearance of Deathlock was in Astonishing Tales number 25 through like 37, and then right in the middle of that, they did one issue that was all Guardians of the Galaxy. So I knew that. And then
Drax, so you knew more than I did.
And then Drax I knew because his first appearance is in the first appearance of Thanos, which is Iron Man number 55. which I obviously have a copy of.
As many comic books as I read growing up, as much of Marvel as I took in, the cosmic side of the universe was never a thing that I really delved into.
See, this is where we need Lucas.
Yes, we do. Lucas, we need to have you back on the show so you can properly educate us a little bit on the cosmic side of things. Lucas Garrett, my buddy, is the person we're referring to. The guy's got like an encyclopedic mind of comic book trivia from all eras and multiple different companies and imprints and franchises, and I don't know how he keeps any
I
of
thought
it
I knew
straight.
a lot, but I was like, dude.
Yeah, as much as I feel like I knew, I'm like, nope, Brian knows more than I do. And then Lucas puts us both to shame. He can imagine franchise crossovers that are super extensive, to down to like the tiniest details of characters that are similar from entire lines of books that I've never even heard of. And novels and it sensory overload. That's what that would give me. But I did not know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were, and I thought, you know what? Whatever this is, I'm gonna let Marvel show me what it was. Now, quickly after that news came out, I started seeing things like Rocket Raccoon, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we have a raccoon with a machine gun. Wow, this is a whole new territory, isn't it? And then it didn't take long before the cosmic stuff started becoming more routine in my mind, because as soon as I watch Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm like, holy shit, this is a whole new avenue. This is great.
Yep.
And then the entire MCU takes 22 or 23 movies to build up the Infinity Saga, in which case every character or every hero introduced in those movies fights Thanos and his cosmic army of evil, and then Marvel announces that Phase 4 will include the Eternals. What the fuck is an Eternal? I don't know, but again, I'm more than content to just let Marvel show me what it wants me to learn about them, and
that's a good attitude.
It has a cast that's just crazy. The pedigree in that cast is impressive. They've got characters who've never done comic book movies like this before, and it's all. This is a whole new avenue. Like this is this is probably going to have all kinds of world building to explain to the world at large more cosmic stuff, like as if to say the Guardians and Thanos are far from the extent of the cosmic going-ons in the Marvels in that Marvel has created. So, I mean, again, I knew who Galactus was, but and the Silver Surfer, Norrin Radd. I knew that kind of stuff, but what I've read of that, they were always on Earth when I read it. I never like Adam Warlock, because I had things like the Handbook to the Marvel Universe when I was in junior high. I had some idea who he was because I didn't have the book. I read. I remember sitting at lunch one day reading over somebody's copy, like somebody else that was in there. They were letting me look through it, the Handbook of the Marvel Universe. I remember Adam Warlock being on there and thinking to myself, "What in the hell is that? Why is he gold?" But that was. I never actually read any of it. So, what do you think of the Eternals preview?
I have no vested interest in the Eternals. It's not a I don't know what the word I want to use. Franchise, I guess, is probably the closest. It's never bled over into any of the comic books that I have, any of the series of comic books that I've read. So I don't really have a vested interest. Emily, my wife, is concerned that she's like, anytime a movie has that many big names, she's worried that it's just going to be just a flop. So she's concerned about that because you get all these big names and then you're too busy paying attention to the actors and then it's not a good movie. I don't know. I think it's awesome that it's like the golden age of geekery. You know, when we were kids, that no A-list actor would be seen dead in a comic book movie back then, and now they're climbing over each other to be in a Marvel movie. I think that's awesome.
And I remember watching Guardians the first time. And as soon as Nova Prime showed up, I'm like, oh my God, Glenn Close? Academy Award-winning Glenn Close is in a comic book movie. And then very shortly after that, the news is announced Robert Redford is joining the sequel to Captain America. And I'm like,
that's one of the actors that I was thinking of, back when we were kids. Robert Redford would not have done a comic book movie back then.
Hell no. He would have been good at it.
But he wouldn't.
But no, it would have never. And then after that, you got people coming out. Annette Bening shows up in Captain Marvel. And then we've got, and all along we've had Samuel L. Jackson and there's Nick Fury, but I never would have anticipated that any actors as well known as him would make that. Like, I kind of figured, and he was mostly because he looked like Nick Fury in the Ultimate universe that Marvel created was based on Samuel L. Jackson. And so it made sense that they would get him for the MCU.
Yeah.
But I never really anticipated any actors as big as him wanting to do these things. And then, like I said, then we get Robert Redford, and then we get Josh Brolin as the voice of Thanos.
Yeah.
And
the list just goes on.
Yeah, and Sir Anthony Hopkins is Odin. Are you kidding me? And not only did they get him for one, they got him for three of them. You got Rene Russo for the first two Thor movies, and then she made that triumphant comeback for a little bit in Endgame.
Right.
I mean, Marvel's got a lot of power to get a lot of big name actors in these movies, but this one, Selma Hayek and Angelina Jolie.
Yes.
Again, Angelina, I would have never imagined her being in a comic book movie. But whatever.
Video game movie though, so.
What? Oh, well. Oh, Tomb Raider? Yeah. God. All right. I had successfully forgotten about that. Thank you.
Let me salt that wound for you.
Yeah. Good job. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Look at that. Oh, ow. But
here's some lemon juice to put in there too.
I
didn't hate those movies.
I saw the first one. That was enough for me. That was more than enough for me. But so I'm curious about this one. And Tanya and I, she's all in. Like we watched it and she's like, ooh. I'm like, yeah, exactly. This is going to be interesting. And see, the thing is, I've seen some comments that say it doesn't look like Marvel. Well, firstly, that's by design.
Because and I think the people that are saying that don't read the comic books to know that this is part of Marvel, and just I don't, like I said, I'm a huge Marvel fan and I don't know very much about the Eternals, but for people to say that doesn't look like Marvel, I think is I'm going to go out on a limb and say ignorance.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, because again, I've never read any Eternals. I don't know about them. So you could lump me in there, but I feel like they're saying it more as because it's not what they're looking for. They want superheroes. Or they're simply afraid to see anything crazier than what we've already seen. And the Eternals definitely has potential to go in crazier directions. I mean, there are easily going to be things that tie to the MCU. I mean,
I have a theory. We'll see if it pans out. that the Eternals will lead into a Fantastic Four movie.
I would not be surprised. And I would not be surprised. I fully expect that if that's the case, Marvel is going to find all the ways to connect the dots in ways that make perfect sense, that are perfectly enjoyable. And I mean, if nothing else, for Earth-based Avengers fans, there was a character called Black Knight who had a magical sword. He's making his MCU debut in this, played by Kit Harington from Game
Was
of
he
Thrones.
supposed to be? Oh, I didn't know that was Black Knight.
Yep. Yes, he's playing Dane. Yeah, he's was Dane Whitman. Yeah, he's playing Black Knight. So, so I mean, if nothing else, GOT fans can get in on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
but I think just the whole like space-based premise really leaves the door open for characters that you mentioned earlier, which is Galactus and Silver Surfer, which then just begs for Fantastic Four. So then the big question to me is, can someone make a Fantastic Four movie that doesn't suck? And kind of at the same time, why can't anyone make a Fantastic Four movie that doesn't suck? Because it is I think people forget that Fantastic Four is one of the big pillars of the Marvel comics.
If the Fantastic Four comic book had not caught on like it did, or if, God forbid, it had come out and it was just another comic book that people read for a few issues and then it goes away, nothing else that we know from Marvel follows it.
Yeah,
if the Fantastic Four had fallen,
I think it's as big as the foundation as Spider-Man and the mutants.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the success of the first few issues of Fantastic Four selling, you know, because Jack Kirby and Stan Lee co-create this book that is nothing like a comic book's ever done. It's a family drama set in a world of superheroes. Nobody had ever done that. And if the readership had not cared or just left it alone altogether, all those other characters that everybody knows from their childhood from Marvel, they may not have ever been created. We'd have no MCU now. So, and as long as Kevin Feige is in charge of the creative direction of the MCU, I think we can trust they'll make a Fantastic Four movie that can rock our socks. I mean, I like the first Fantastic Four movie. As dumb as
I wasn't a huge fan of it either. And the second one, I don't even remember watching the second one.
The second one tried to set up. It was going to try to set up some cosmic stuff, but it couldn't do it. It bit off more than it could chew because they brought the Silver Surfer into it, and it felt like they didn't quite know what to do with him. But then it also felt like they didn't quite know what to do with the characters expanding beyond the first movie either. And let's not mention that Galactus is teased at the end of it, but he looks like a cloud.
Yeah, like a big, like a cloud, like a nebula or something.
Yeah, it's weird. But I think the Eternals could be really great. It could be really strange. I mean, the preview, I watched the preview 5 times and I thought, this is just bizarre. And I want to see this.
Yeah.
What do you think of the preview for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings?
I like it.
I love martial arts movies, and that's all I need.
As, of course, being a huge Iron Man fan that I am hoping and praying that they go back, and I think that's what they're going to do with this movie, and rectify the shit dumpster fire that was Iron Man 3.
Could they please?
Because Mandarin is going to be in it.
Yes. And
because I think Ben Kingsley is going to be in this movie too, if I'm not mistaken.
That is entirely possible. I don't know.
I think they've. I'm not positive. You can quote me on that, or you can't quote me on that. I don't know. Pick one. But I think I saw that Ben Kingsley had signed on, and that's another actor. I mean, holy shit, Ben Kingsley.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, Academy Award-winning actor Ben Kingsley. It's like a pedigree that people have, and Marvel gets these people in these movies, and it's like, holy shit. I can't. I can't. I don't know shit about Shang-Chi other than he's master of kung fu in the comics.
Yeah, I don't either. I didn't read any of those. That's one of those 70s titles that I'm hoping that they go down that road a little bit more, because I love some of those old 70s titles. I've heard they're talking about rebooting Blade. I'm kind of on the fence about that, because I really think Wesley Snipes nailed the portrayal. So I hate to see them kind of start over on that, but at the same time, I'm curious to see what they can do with it. Ghost Rider is another one from the 70s. I was not a big fan of the Nick Cage movies. I know Nick Cage, he like put everything he had into those movies because he is such a huge comic book fan, and I appreciate that, and I like that somebody with that big of a name power has that the same love for the comic books and franchises that I do, but it didn't work. It's like you said, they didn't know what to do with it.
Well, Ghost Rider, the new Ghost Rider, the current Ghost Rider, Robert Reyes, he was introduced into the MCU on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
But he couldn't stick around for more than a half a season because it turns out, wow, those special effects are really fucking expensive.
Yeah.
But I feel like that did open the door for Johnny Blaze, or who was the first one? Dan Ketchup or Danny Ketch? Yeah, I feel like that opened the door for them to possibly go back and introduce them again. Oscar Isaac was rumored for months to be playing Moon Knight. The news came out the other day confirming Oscar Isaac.
Another 70s title, another big 70s title. Moon Knight was back then. So
another character that a lot of casual fans of the MCU, they don't know who Moon Knight is. So it will be interesting to see what Marvel does here, because even Tanya asked, she's like, what is Moon Knight? I said, here's what I said. I said, I've read very few comics with them in it. I'm not an expert, but I said, imagine if Batman had the power of the Egyptian gods and was tasked with and had multiple personalities, because he's constantly torn between being an enforcer of justice and a guy who has to keep his god's given powers in check. And yeah, call it an alternative to Batman, I guess.
That's probably not a bad idea. But see, that's another one of the 70s titles. So you got Moon Knight.
Yes.
That's where I'm hoping that they're going to go down that avenue, because maybe they'll do Deathlock, and Ghost Rider. And yes, I know both of those made their appearance in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but
yeah, but those were newer versions. This could end up with classic versions.
Absolutely. And Werewolf by Night, Dracula, all of those 70s titles. There are some really awesome 70s titles that I would love to see get made into movies. So I'm hoping that's where they're going with this. And it kind of looks like it does, since they're doing Shang-Chi and they're doing Moon Knight. And yes, I know Moon Knight has had more since then, but he was really big back then.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, he's that version of Mark Spector from the 70s is still the version that people remember the most. And the thing is, Shang-Chi, again, I've never read a comic. I don't know anything about it, but it's a martial arts movie, and it looks like it's going to kick some serious ass. That's all I need to get me in the door. But I saw an awful lot of memes of uh the actor Finn Jones looking quite sad about how Shang-Chi is gonna do right with the kung fu stuff, where Netflix Iron Fist failed miserably, and I had to laugh at those memes because I'm like, they might have a point.
Yeah.
So I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I've got nothing but faith in what Marvel's doing. I mean, next up they got Loki coming out,
Yes.
and
All right.
that
So
will be.
I'm assuming that you finished Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh, absolutely. We watched it every week. So yeah, oh yeah.
And what'd you think? Because we haven't talked about that or WandaVision on the podcast.
No, you're right. We haven't. I liked it overall. There were a couple episodes where I thought, first few episodes, I thought, I feel like they want to do something big here, but they just can't. They just can't get to it.
And I saw that they had to do a lot of rewrites and reshoots because of COVID.
Yeah, and then when I found out about that, I'm like, well, okay, that does kind of make sense why it feels like something's missing here. But at the end of it, or before the end of it, I was into it. I liked all the characters they brought back. I didn't realize the Dora Milaje were going to be there, but I was all in for it.
Yeah, no, it was a big surprise for me.
I did not expect Batroc to show back up.
Oh, I know. I saw that. I was like, oh, it's Batroc. And my wife's like, huh? I'm like the guy that Captain America fights at the beginning of Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah. French guy took the ship over.
Yeah.
In fact, when he first popped up, it took me a second longer to realize who it was. Before Tanya said, she's like, "Oh, the guy from the Lumarian Star," and I'm like, first of all, I looked at her. I'm like, well, holy shit. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm like, you're absolutely right. But it took me a second longer. I never expected that. I didn't realize. I mean, I knew by not killing him off or whatever, or we didn't find out his fate after that, that sure, there was a chance he'd come back.
Well, I really wish they hadn't killed off Crossbones in Age of Ultron now.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I wish he hadn't been killed off now.
We had the perfect conduit to bring him back.
Yes.
So I'm really disappointed they killed him off in Age of Ultron. I wish they could have prognosticated that and said, you know what, we shouldn't kill him off. We should just send him to the raft and we'll bring him back in, season 2 or season 3 of Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yeah, because again, Batroc was not killed in the second Captain America. So sure, that it was never on the forefront of my mind. But I mean, there were opportunities to bring him back, but I still never expected it to happen.
No.
So when he did, I'm like, holy shit. And then he sort of disappears, and then he comes back at the end of the show, and I'm like, all right, that's the way to give a character closure. Now, Sharon Carter, yeah, I read that
what they did with Sharon Carter. I got
but see, I read that Emily Van Camp was on this show, but I didn't expect them to go the way they did with it, and I'm not complaining because I feel like they made her interesting.
They could have made her just as interesting, I think, if they just stuck to the Marvel Universe. But hey, that's just me. I know a lot of people are like, you got to just expect change. That's fine.
Well,
I didn't hate it, but I was kind of disappointed just because I really.
Yeah, but see, I'm not saying you got to expect change. I'm just saying that in a post-Hydra world and in a post-Thanos world, they're gonna make drastic decisions.
Yeah,
and I mean, I feel like they did this partially as a way to make her character stand out from the legacy that her aunt had by creating Shield,
Yeah.
or by helping to co-found Shield, and they certainly did that.
Yeah.
You know who I was well and truly shocked to see show up was Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Oh man, I just about lost my shit when
I did too.
because I read all. I was a huge fan of the original Nick Fury Agents of Shield.
And I got into that book because of your recommendation 10 years ago.
Yeah. So when they brought her back, when they introduced her, I'm like, holy shit, that's the Countess.
Yes.
I don't think
when she introduced herself as the Contessa, I'm like, whoa! And now Tanya and I were watching this thing over Zoom and on Disney Plus, and I'm like, yes! She's like, who's that? And we paused it, and I'm like, she was a Shield agent in the 60s comic book. I'm like, I did not expect her to ever.
I was like, and my wife just kind of like, who is that? I'm like, so I came down. See, like I said, I'm a huge Agents of Nick Fury, Agents of Shield fan from the 60s. I've met Jim Steranko. I've talked to him for a while. He's awesome. He signed stuff for us, for myself and JD. And I'm sure they will not go I'm going to say they won't go the route of the way they did in the comic book, but I think they will. If you read some of the backstory, she was kind of supposed to originally have been tagged as a villain. They just never kind of expanded on that. So I think they're going to. Yes.
Nick Fury versus Shield.
That's right.
Yeah, this one's from 89. But
I was gonna say 88, so I was close.
Yeah, but there she is. There's the Contessa. And God, her full name is ridiculous. It's what the Contessa de Fontaine or something. But when she I'm like, yes! I yelled, and we paused it. And Tanya's like, who was that? I'm like, well, she was a Shield agent in the 60s, and along with many others that have been brought into the MCU. Yeah, they're different than they are from the comics, but I don't care. I'm happy to see them pop up.
Yeah.
Because these characters that all these other creators designed over the years are getting their due on screen. These are not things that people would have expected. I would like to see somebody interview Jim Steranko and ask him what he thinks of it, but who knows? Maybe he hasn't watched it. Who knows? But I'm I was very excited to see her show up, and I wouldn't have guessed that Julia Louis-Dreyfus would be so fucking effective in the role. She embodied that character.
I like what she did.
And at the end, when she says to John Walker, she said, we don't need a Captain America, we need a U.S. agent. That is clearly setting up for something big that they're planning in the Marvel Universe, in the MCU, that we don't yet know about. I've read speculation that it's the Thunderbolts, and that is entirely possible.
I saw that. Because they're talking about bringing Punisher back, and I heard a rumor that they're going to bring Punisher back, and it's going to be John Barenthal again, and he was on the Thunderbolts.
And if they're going to do the Thunderbolts, that kind of makes sense, because Emil Blonsky, the Abomination, was not killed off in the Incredible Hulk.
That's true. And I've heard a rumor that they are bringing him back. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
And I mean, and the Thunderbolts started out as a team of villains. Well, they were villains that were looking for redemption. So they kind of became good guys that were still bad guys. Like, they were still prone to being well, terrible, but
so
for the right reasons.
is that they do Thunderbolts because Elektra is on that team. If they do Elektra, maybe they'll start bringing Daredevil back. I kind of like the Netflix Daredevil, but I think they could do better. So I would like to see a Marvel Universe Daredevil or a Marvel Universe Daredevil. Plus, who else? Deadpool is on that team. So are we going to see a blending of the mutants and the superheroes? Like dying to see
I don't know.
And have that lead into like an Avengers versus X-Men movie.
Well, here's the thing. The Thunderbolts over the years in the comic books have had a revolving door of membership.
Yeah.
From group to group, it's almost never the same lineup. So there are characters that they can introduce solely to be Thunderbolts. And I mean, John Walker, sick bastard that he is, fits perfectly in with that.
I think it opens the possibility for so much stuff that people just.
But I mean, sure, this could mean characters returning that are gone. But for me, it's almost more exciting that there's more characters that we're going to see pop up in these various projects. That much like they did with the Avengers originally in the MCU, where we introduce a character here and there and we bring them together into one thing. If John Walker is just the first of the new Thunderbolts that we see, if that's what the Contessa is setting up, that's fine with me. I would like to see Moonstone, and I would like to see Nomad, and I mean like 90s Nomad. I could see him popping up. If another version of Deathlock comes in, I won't complain because there have been numerous Deathlocks over the years. And there's all kinds of other lost characters that we could, like stray Avengers characters that have never seen their MCU. That again, the Avengers in the comics, they've never had the same lineup for. I mean, there have been characters that have been constants, and there's been entire lineups where the vast majority of casual viewers would have never heard of, like Thunderstrike. But that isn't to say that a bunch of these characters can't just find a lease on life in the MCU that's different from the books, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
I like the creative energy in it, and honestly, if introducing Thunderbolts gives us just a chance to see villains that would have never rated an appearance in the movies, but could possibly because of Disney Plus, then that's okay too. Like Elsa Bloodstone, that would be interesting. But if they go the supernatural route, no reason they can't. I don't want to see. I really just. I don't want to see goofy characters like I don't want to see goofy characters like Howard the Duck again. Yeah, it was kind of cool. He showed up at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy with some smart aleck remark. But I don't. He doesn't need a TV show. So come on, people, stop asking for it. But
it's another one of those big 70s titles, man.
I know. But the I mean, I'm very curious what they're going to do here too, because there's all those other shows that they've got announced coming up, like Armor Wars starring James Rhodes. Marvel Disney Plus. Armor Wars.
I didn't see that.
Yes, it was announced back in December.
I missed that.
The Secret Invasion storyline, limited series. Who they just cast Christopher McDonald, otherwise known as Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore, and one of the Enterprise C crew members in Star Trek the Next Generation's
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yesterday's Enterprise. He was one of the C crew members that went back to his original timeline. He's been in shitloads of stuff, but he's best known as Shooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore. But he showed up at the news popped up the other day that he's cast in Secret Invasion. And if Secret Invasion, the show, is going to reflect Secret Invasion from the comics at all, then that means they're Skrulls, which would make perfect sense because they were introduced in Captain Marvel.
Yep.
And then they showed back up in Spider-Man Far From Home and WandaVision. So I'm pretty sure that's where they're going with this.
Yeah.
And then who knows what they can do beyond that. There's another Ant-Man movie coming out. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
Yes.
Who knows who we could see there?
Yeah, I have heard no rumors on that. I don't think
I haven't much either, but just the subtitle, Quantumania, meaning
I think I saw one recently and I fucking forgot what it was. Because I think I saw who they cast for a villain or who the villain was rumored to be.
Supposedly, they're bringing Corey Stoll back from the first movie. He played Yellowjack in the first Ant-Man movie.
That might.
But I don't know. It could be. I did read that he might be back for it, but that doesn't mean he will be. It's just a rumor. It's just speculation right now. But
I think what I read was they weren't going to have one guy back from the original one because he got in trouble with the law. I think it's
T.I. Yeah, there were some charges brought against it, or he was accused of something terrible. Basically his bad behavior is no longer going to be rewarded with, and you know what? Nor should people who, if you're
well, that's the same thing that happened to the guy that
James Gunn.
No, because James Gunn came back because
he came back, but it took an awful lot of doing to get him back, and he had to show true remorse
from Deadpool. Wade Wilson's buddy that owns the bar.
Oh, Weasel.
Yes, Weasel. Yeah, the actor that played Weasel did some really naughty stuff and got his.
I hadn't heard about that.
Oh yeah, no, this was early.
Oh, so basically, he's not coming back for Deadpool 3.
He's not.
All right. Well, you know what? See, again,
it was very, very it was not. It was not.
Yeah, it's gross. It's gross. Yeah, you know what? The fact is, some of these people, their bad behavior off screen does not need to be rewarded.
No.
Let's get rid of these people who are shitty influences on the world, and let's not reward them by paying them to be in projects when you can write new characters or just write them out altogether.
Or just bring in other characters that were in these books that have.
Yes. Bring in new characters that we haven't seen on screen yet, and hopefully the actors or actresses that play them, we never find out later that they had bad behavior. Because I'm a big believer that celebrity status needs to stop being a defense for being terrible people.
Yeah, well, I think it also needs to stop being a soapbox for advocacy for anti-vaxxing, but that's just me.
Yeah, well, hey, we're in agreement on that one too.
Yeah.
But anyways, we have talked the audience's ear off with this one.
Yeah, I was just checking to see how long. That's one of the things I don't like about Zoom is I can't see how long the meeting's been going on.
A while. Well, I will say thanks to the audience for listening. And now that Brian's staying in the country for a while, we can do these sometimes.
I think that's what we're going to need to do. We're going to need to get General Geekery back up and running as a regular show.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, for anybody that's missed it, everybody knows that I have since about 2008 have been working overseas, in like Afghanistan and Africa and South America and Eastern Europe, and
every other obscure place they could find a place to send him.
Yeah, I have recently decided that is no longer something that I would like to do for a living. So I have come home, and I will not be going overseas again unless it's on vacation. I will not be. Or Emily said the only thing that she'll be okay with is if I go to Antarctica, because Antarctica is the only continent I have not been on yet.
You know,
and
there are Marvel comics that you could bring with you that you could pass on to the Penguins because they haven't read them. Their little penguin minds might be blown by them.
Yeah, so if I get a chance to go to Antarctica, she's all right with that because it'll only be for 6 months, and that's it. That'll be the end of it. It'll be one season, and that'll be it. But it's really hard to get on down there, and they stopped using paramedics down there a long time ago, so I don't think I don't really have a shot at getting on. But if the job comes up, I'm going to take it.
Well, just make sure you have a warm coat.
Yeah.
Maybe one with down feathers in it, because I understand it gets a little bit below zero down there, just a bit.
So anyway, yes, now that I am home and not going overseas anymore, I think General Geekery will be a regular thing once again.
Yes, indeed, which means we can get some guests back on.
Yeah, I just saw that Richard Whipple just popped up in my feed again. It's like we've been trying to get him on the show.
Yes,
Customs we tried 2 or 3 times to get him on the show, and we just couldn't line up times that worked for him.
Yeah, so maybe we can now. Yeah, there's a few people I would like to have on as guests again, and more people I would like to see. I could get. Yeah, there's some people I'd like to see if I could get on as first-time guests. So we will see what happens.
So on that note, if there are customizers or, you know who we should try and get on is Bob Layton.
Dude, that would be amazing. Reach out to Bob Layton. You're friends with him on Facebook, I believe. And he knows you. Well, he's never met you, but he knows you, oddly enough.
I know. What I need to do is go to a convention where he's at and say, hey, I'm the guy that keeps sending proxies to meet you because I'm your biggest fan. Would you be on our video podcast once?
I bet. I would like to think that he would. I don't know, but I would like to think so.
I would like to think that he would just do it just for the novelty. He seems like a really cool guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any ins with anybody else that could possibly be considered a celebrity, but should any celebrities happen to be listening to this, reach out. I don't think so. But.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to say is you viewers, if there are people, customizers specifically that you would like to see on the show. I mean, like we need to get Dayton back on.
Yes.
You know, if there are whoever your favorite customizer is, if you'd like to see them on the show, always comment below. I do answer comments, everyone's comments, although I've been having problems like seeing comments that somebody's commented on it. Then when I go to answer it, it doesn't show up. So I don't know what that is, but I do try and answer everybody's comments. But if there are people that you would like to see on the show, put those in suggestions in the comments below.
Or if you always listen to our show and you have a conversation with us, even if we can't hear you and you would like to be a guest on the show, put your own name down there in the comments. Absolutely. And we will see what happens, because I would love to see people comment and say, ooh, I want to do the show. Then that'd be great.
That's how we got Tanya on the show. Is Tanya's like, I want to be on the show. I'm like, yes. All right.
And there's plenty of other people over the years that we've done appearances on their show that I would kind of like to get on our show, G.I. Joe Berg guys. Yes. So perhaps, but
yeah, we need to get the Joe Berg guys on.
Yes, that would be phenomenal. So, but anyways, thanks for listening, everybody out there, and Or, well, all right, listening and watching. Thank you. Although I'm sure somebody puts this on, downloads it, and listens to us without ever actually looking at us.
That's what you do.
What? Yes, that is okay. Quiet you. But good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching. As always, please do that fun social media stuff. Like, share, subscribe, and comment below. And like JD said, thanks for watching.